Algebraic expressions express ideas about numbers concisely. In this video, we are going to work with algebraic expressions and learn how to simplify these expressions. Now, in order to do this, we need to define certain concepts in algebra. The first such concept is what is meant by a term. An algebraic term usually could be a constant, 5, or it could be a variable x, or it could be a product of two variables x, y, or variable and a constant, or it could be the quotient of two variables, or a variable and a constant. Now all these are referred to as a term, and so what you need to note is that the operation is either multiplication or division. It's either a term is put together with constants and variables as a product or as a quotient. Now, also there are certain ideas about certain rules and notations which have been mentioned here, so I would just bring it up here to your notice. The product sign is usually dropped when we write 2 times x, and the constant usually comes before the variable, so we write 2x and not x2. Then the 2 before in the term 2x is called the coefficient of the term, so we will learn a new term called the coefficient of the term is called the coefficient. And the coefficient is usually a factor, and if the coefficient factor of a variable happens to be 1, like in the case of s, we generally write only the alphabet and omit 1. Now these are all some terms and some rules. Now we have to further learn about the types of algebraic expressions, and we have algebraic expressions called monomials. As the name suggests, is an algebraic expression having one term. So it could be any one of the terms that are shown over here. So a monomial is a one-term expression, so it could be 2xy. This would be a monomial because it's put together with constants and variable as a product. Then we have a binomial, and a binomial expression has, as the name suggests, 2 terms. Binomial has 2 terms, so it can be 2x plus 1, so it's put together with 2 terms put together with the operation of addition and subtraction. Addition or subtraction, yeah. And then we have trinomials. And here please observe, a trinomial can have a variable which is, a trinomial has 3 terms of course, and it has a variable which is new, and we will come to it shortly how to describe this variable here, x square, okay, and how we come about that. We'll shortly talk about that. And then we also have polynomials. Now polynomials all poly, as the name suggests, is more than one term. So all binomials, trinomials come under the family of polynomials. Polynomials come under the family of polynomials. Now we generally mention this as a polynomial in A, or in A as a variable it would be a to the 4 plus a cube plus a plus 1. All this is a could be a to the 4, and it is more than 2 variables, more than 2 terms. Sorry, more than 2 terms becomes a polynomial. Also put together with addition and subtraction. Now we are coming on to doing some simplification, and as a result also explaining some other concepts or in algebra. Okay, I will want to just make some space here. So let me take this up there. Okay, now suppose I were to wanted to find the perimeter. I wanted to find the perimeter of an equilateral triangle. The perimeter of an equilateral triangle. Perimeter of an equilateral triangle. An equilateral triangle would mean that the sides all measure the same. So let me give S as the measure of the sides, and perimeter. If I'm talking about perimeter, it means that I am talking about the boundary. If I were to walk along the boundary of the triangle, I would have walked a length of S plus S plus S. Now when I am simplifying this, I would get, let me recall that when the coefficient factor is 1, then it is usually omitted. So this would be 1s plus 1s plus 1s, and therefore I can write it as 3s. Now, so that is the perimeter. Now, so I have worked with algebraic variables, and it's just like normal addition. We have done 3s. Now what happens when I have to measure the area of a square? I now need to measure the area of a square. Now the square has the side length of variable x. Each side measures x. Now area is a concept used when we are talking about the space within, right? It refers to the space. Okay, it is the space within the square. Normally used if you want to know, if you have to tile a square floor, then how many tiles I would require to fill up the space. Now in this case, we need to find out, if I need to find out area, we are moving into a concept of two-dimensional. So an area would have a length and a breadth, and therefore we need to multiply to find out the area, because area is always in square units. And what happens when we multiply x times x is we get what is known as x square. X square, or raised to the power 2. Now this concept is, this superscript 2 is referred to as an exponent. Exponent, or power of the number variable x. So when I have to measure area or a two-dimensional concept, then it becomes x times x, and I move on. I get I get a product of x square, and that's called an exponential power. Now when I was doing the perimeter, it's just measuring the length, and therefore this is unidimensional, one dimension. Okay, now let's move on to just find out what happens if I were to measure the volume. If I were to measure the volume of a cube. Now volumes are generally measured to, suppose I want to fill this with a liquid, or I want to fill up this cube with packets. So it's a carton and I want to fill it up with packets. Now I will have this we go into what is known as three-dimensional, and therefore in a cube, if all the lengths measure x, that is, this is also x, this is also x, and that the height, so all three are x. The height is it, or the depth is also x, in which case it's going to be x multiplied by x multiplied by x, and this is x cube. So the exponent here is going to be 3. So this gives us an idea that algebra is also helpful in representing multi-dimensional